that the international jihadist movement has declared war. They have declared war on anybody who does not think and act exactly as they wish they would think and act. They have declared war and already are executing it on a massive scale on a whole range of countries with which they are in contact. And they have declared war on any country like ourselves that values freedom, openness, and tolerance.
Welcome back to Byline. I'm Brian Lilly. Prime Minister Stephen Harper saying the international jihadist movement has declared war on the world. And while the world has been focused on the attacks in France, this weekend Boko Haram strapped a bomb to a 10-year-old girl in Nigeria. That explosion killed at least 16 people, injured another 30, and it comes just days after another attack in Nigeria that killed an entire village. Former U.S. Ambassador to Nigeria, John Campbell, joins us now from New York. Ambassador Campbell, thanks for talking to us today. This is, we're focused on what happens in France, and I guess rightly so because we have more connections to France, to Paris. People can relate to that. But on this other part of the world, a little bit to the south of France, absolute bedlam going on. Boko Haram has been around for more than a decade now. What do we need to know about the group?
The group is diffuse. It's unclear as to its objectives. It has no 10-point plan for the reform of Nigeria. Instead, it wants to destroy the Nigerian state. Its rhetoric talks about the building of God's kingdom on earth through justice for the poor, achieved by the rigid implementation of Islamic law, or Sharia.
So, I mean, they may not have a 10-point plan, but driving out the government, the state government, driving out the Christian population, those seem to be part of its plan, along with Sharia. It doesn't look like a good future for those parts of Nigeria under the control of Boko Haram, which unfortunately there is an ebb and flow, but seems to be growing at this point.
That's right, it is growing. And in fact, the majority of the victims of Boko Haram have been not Christians, but rather Muslims. Muslims who have a different vision of what Islam actually means.
So this is a group that they have at times said that they will attach themselves to Al-Qaeda, but unlike, say, Al-Shabaab in Somalia or ISIS or even Al-Qaeda, they're not reaching out on the international scale and trying to preach to Muslims in the West and say, do this for us, do that, make an attack on our behalf. But they are in line, I guess, as fellow traveling Salafists who their version of Islam must trump all. And so whether you are a kuffar, an infidel, or an apostate Muslim because you don't preach or practice Islam the way they do, they want you gone or dead.
That's right. That's correct. Where they start from is that the secular state is essentially idolatrous. That what the secular state does is it replaces worship of Allah with worship of the state. And they will cite things like the national anthem or the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. As infidels, they will argue, Muslims who support the secular state deserve to die.
So this is a group that, do they have goals beyond just Nigeria? Are they trying to spread into neighboring countries as well? Will this become, is the goal to become part of the larger caliphate that many of these Islamic groups across the north of Africa and the Middle East want to unite?
Thus far, no, though things could change. Right now, they are focused specifically on the destruction of the Nigerian state and of the construction, or they would say, the reconstruction of a caliphate in northeastern Nigeria, more or less the equivalent of a pre-colonial Kanuri caliphate. In other words, a territory that is basically in northeastern Nigeria, but included certain borderlands in Cameroon, Chad, and Niger. Okay. That right now is the focus of their concern.
Okay, so if they get that, At that point, things could change. They could potentially link up with all of the other armed Islamic groups, mostly Salafist, mostly coming out of the Muslim Brotherhood ideology, essentially.
That is certainly possible. And here, one of the important elements or factors is the response by the Nigerian state and also the international community. There have been lots of reports from credible non-governmental organizations about security service abuses of the local population. This seems to drive, if not support, or at least acquiescence for what Boko Haram is doing in parts of the country.
Okay, so the response to it sometimes drives them into their hands. We will continue to monitor this. Thanks for your input today as a former ambassador to Nigeria and senior fellow at the Council on Foreign Relations. Thanks so much.